Good evening, everybody. It's after 11 o'clock on a Friday night, and I couldn't sleep. I couldn't sleep because, in light of the news of late, that's got me a little bit concerned. I thought I should make some mental notes to share with you about what I see is the future to come. Um, the news that I'm speaking of is lately these rumors, which have been corroborated and substantiated with regard to Barack Obama's training of up to 30,000 shock troops to take on and disrupt rallies and try their utmost to, for lack of a better term, disrupt and nullify the election of President Trump, to bring the administration down and to hope, in their minds, I believe, supplant a new regime. Now, what we have to understand is the objective that Hillary Clinton's her campaign and the backing that she had, the backing of the Soros regime, the backing of the Rockefellers, the Rothschilds, the Zuckerbergs, and all et al. And all their ilk. These people had the idea that they were going to take this country and actually establish a tyrannical regime whereby, through means of social engineering, put this country on a path back to the Dark Ages. Now, the American people, being in our DNA, the nature of wanting freedom at all costs, we said no. And we went to the polls with our feet and we started our battle there. Now, in every other past election, you may not have been happy with the result, but technically people didn't become that disruptive and that destructive. Even after the election of Barack Hussein Obama, yes, the Tea Party went out and marched and protested what they thought was a rigged election, but you didn't see the wholesale violence that you see today. These people on the left are not going to stop. They see this situation as being one that they came within a gnat's eyelash of being able to have their way. And it was thwarted by the majority of the American public that said, no, we do not want to go down that road. Now, having said that, the thing that we have to understand is that we tend to see this in terms of a geopolitical situation, whereby we're talking about elections and politics and people in office. It's not about that. This is about principalities. More specifically, I'm talking about we have a huge battle between God and Satan. And what's going on is you have a duking it out process between those two powers, if you will. And the most frightening thing to either side are human beings. And why is that? Because human beings have the free will to make choices. That frightens God and it frightens Satan. So, what we have going on now is a battle that people need to understand is not just about the politics. Okay? We have great evils afoot that are trying to undermine and destroy what has been established as the will of the people in this nation who believe in God, who believe in goodness, who believe in righteousness, who believe in truth, and who believe most of all in freedom. And we have an opposing force guided by greed, guided by power, lust for power, and perversions that I'll get into in a minute, that we have to understand is going on here. And those two forces are at each other right now in what is now, at this point, a nonviolent civil war. Hopefully it'll stay that way, but I very much doubt it. And I'm going to make a prediction that it will not stay a nonviolent civil war, that we will come to blows. And the methodology, as every good Marxist knows, and it's been done for the last 80 years, is that when it's what we have deemed lately to be called a false flag. Now, false flag is a plot afoot by usually a government or an agency where they do something catastrophic in order to justify changing laws and policies that affect freedom, liberty, and the behavior of other people, the population at large. So, this is why I'm warning people about this situation that Obama's doing in this shadow government that he is initiating, and how he's being funded by these super white, super rich liberal elites. And they're not liberals, they're actually Marxists. These people want a tyrannical regime, and they want themselves, the billionaire class, to be running the lives of everyone else. They need water boys like Obama. They need puppets and proxies. And Obama is willing to do this by training the ground troops to go out and do the bidding of these super elite white people. And if you don't think that, if you're caught into this little trap of that this is about Obama and he's black and people are against him because of that, and that Trump is a racist and all that, you've fallen under the spell of these white ruling elites that have been spoon feeding you this pablum of lies and deception. Now, what's going to happen, and I'm going to make my prediction, you're going to see a recess, and these representatives are going to go back to their districts. You're going to see marches, and you're going to see the infiltration of conservative groups by these leftist organizers and instigators. They're going to go in there, talk the talk, walk the walk of conservatives. And in any kind of town hall or meetings or rallies or marches, you're going to see them initiating violence in order to establish conflict. And what you've got to understand about this is how the dialectic works according to these people. What they're doing, according to dialectical materialism, which is the basis of Marxism, is nothing goes forward without violent struggle, without a violent conflict. So, on a social level, that means rioting, that means street fights, that means instigating violence in crowds and in meetings of all types. And this is to sway, and what the fact that they infiltrate these groups under the guise of being conservatives, make certain that, of course, they orchestrate it so that the media is there to watch. They do this, they'll instigate a violent altercation, get the media to record it in order to sway public opinion against the conservatives. That is, by definition and by proxy, that would be Donald Trump's people. That conservatives are violent. And why? Because they have made the narrative that what conservatives stand for is God, guns, guts, and glory. And that's how they have pegged us into this sort of stereotype. And that most of the people that are Trump adherents are people who are white, country, pickup driving, camel wearing, tobacco chewing rednecks. And that's the furthest from the truth. So what they're going to do is these kinds of things. And you've got to be ready for this, people, because this is going to happen. Okay? This is the methodology of the left. It's been very successful, and they're not going to give up on those plans now. And Obama is one leading the charge at the behest of his masters, the George Soros, the Rockefellers, the whole Bilderberg group, which is, of course, includes the Rothschilds. These people want to start wars. They bank on these wars. They want this is the whole thing with Russia is a ruse. That they want the war with Russia because that's how these mega bankers profit. Wake up. This is the way it goes down. So what we have to understand is that is coming. That's coming, people. And what we need to do is to first, as conservatives, first of all, align ourselves with the president. We put him in office. It's now time for us to back him up. He needs to get out of that Washington, and he needs to watch his back, because those rhinos like Ryan's Priebus, like all those establishment Republicans that were against him from the beginning, haven't changed their stripes. They haven't. And you'll notice that you don't hear from the Bush family. You don't hear from all the other conservatives that were running against Trump in the primaries. Where are these people gone? They're underground colluding with Obama and his ilk to try to bring the Trump administration down. So what Trump is going to have to do is have the American people at his back, and that includes us. So all the voices of truth warriors, you all know who you are. Y'all need to get out and start talking. Get on online and start talking. Get in the streets and start talking. Get out there and write letters to your newspapers. Challenge these media people. Put their feet to the fire and make these people tell the truth. Get out there. If you see in a rally, you see a camera crew, challenge them that they better cover the event truthfully, because we're going to get in the streets too, folks. And we're going to be out there supporting our president and supporting the ideals of this nation. And we're not going to back down. Okay, we don't want it to come to violence, but if they don't start nothing, then won't be nothing. Okay, so what I'm telling you right now, I was a little bit anxious because I know that good people who are well-meaning, conscientious people who may not identify as being conservative or being liberal, they just might be nice people that we always talk about, that great middle of the road known as the voters that are haven't made a commitment. But you tend to project your goodness, your decency, your kindness. You tend to project that onto people who don't operate under those parameters. You tend to think about, for example, the Muslims as being, we shouldn't generalize on anything. And we should all just keep everything relative, that there's good and there's bad in everyone. Well, you have to look at it a little bit more closely, because that's the great cloud that shrouds righteousness in this country. If you see a specific situation of a religion whose tenets call for violence, of course, not everybody in that religion is going to adhere to it verbatim and also in action. But when you don't see condemnation from this religion, and I'm specifically talking about Islam, when you don't see condemnation widespread and vehemently against violence, against Christians, against women, then you have to conclude that that tends to be the main tenet that they believe. Now, all this talk about immigration, all this talk about all these superfluous things are, again, don't fall into those traps. Stick with what is important. And that is that we have two forces, God and Satan, who are vying for this country. You have to understand, America is the only nation in the history of the world whose founding principles have first started from the premise that people are equal in the eyes of God, and that your rights as a human being come from no one but God. Not to man, not to society, not to a government. Your rights, because you exist, come from the Almighty. There has never been a nation like that. And in our recent past, in the 20th century, when we won wars, what did we do? Unlike all other conquering nations that have won wars, we never went in, usurped a culture. We never went in and took reparations. We went in there and we rebuilt the nations we defeated. That is a Christian concept, a Christian principle, and that is the premise of this nation. And if we lose that, we will be back in the dark ages. So I'm telling you all, please, 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 don't fall for the traps, but know that what we've got going on here is a war, and we're in it now, whether you want to or not. If you voted, you got your feet out there and you voted for Donald Trump, stick with Donald Trump now. When you see all the forces trying to defeat him, and don't vote party, vote principles. Okay, so this is the mama of the dynamic mother-daughter duo giving a solo tonight, and I hope that, and I pray, people, that we stand together as a united front against this leftist evil that's trying to destroy this country and make slaves of us all. Good night.